Hey guys, hello and welcome to a new episode of the Path to DevOps series. Today we're going to continue with Terraform by creating the environment-specific resources that we're due to create. If this sounds fun and you want to see how to use Terraform to create Azure resources, this is the video for you, and let's jump straight into business. As per usual, all of the changes that we're going to make today in the code will be linked down in the description on my GitHub account so that you guys can follow along. That being said, on the screen you can see all the resources that we agreed we need to create for the environment-specific infrastructure. Now, you see 6 resources here, but there's a caveat, and that is the load balancer itself. We don't need to manage through Terraform. This can be managed through the ingress controller deployment, which will come in the future. It's a different step, okay? But that being said, we still need to create 5 to 6 resources using Terraform. So I feel there's a lot of work ahead of us. Let's jump into it. And here we are in our trusty Visual Studio Code IDE. And as you can see here in the corner, we are on a new branch called Feature Adding ENV Resources. Now, I need to tell you something. We need to change the folder structure because so far we're thinking in terms of silos. Yeah, we're deploying the global infrastructure and then the environment-specific infrastructure. So we need to separate them some way. And that way will be obviously the simplest way possible, directories. So right now we have everything in the root of our Git repo here, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create a new folder called global and another folder called environment. Yeah. So everything that we've had so far for the global infrastructure, except for the git ignore, I'm going to move inside of the global folder. Yes, and let's also select all the other stuff. I think the README can stay in the root, yeah? So moving everything else to global. And as you can see right now, we have the git ignore here, and I made some changes. I added this // which means in any folder they are, these files with Terraform state are not going to be tracked to Git, and that's exactly what I want. And today we're just going to work in the environment folder. Okay, now it's time to actually write code into our environment folder. So because I'm lazy, I'm going to just copy paste the .tf files from global to environment. Yeah, and this should do it. Now let's make subtle changes to the code. So first of all, the environment will no longer be the global. It's going to be, I'm going to call this environment, we can actually call it dev. Yeah, it's one of our many environments that we can create using this code. So let's call it dev. Now let's go into the data.tf file, and in here we will need to create a sub DNS zone, so a child zone of the global. So this is a good block. It's exactly what we need, data block for an Azure RM DNS zone, but instead of shiki.ro, which was our root, it's going to be global in here, and the name is going to be barbart.shiki.ro because that is how we called the global zone. And the resource group name, we can look at here. The RG name would have been global_RG. So we can put it in here. And that's exactly how we're going to inherit the parent DNS zone, which will be our global DNS zone in the environment code. Now we're done with the data block as well. So let's move into locals. But no, first let's move into main.tf. So let's look at what resources we want to create, yeah? So we're going to create a resource group. This is fine. ACR is no longer needed, so let's drop this, and instead let's say here we need to create a VNet. DNS subdomain for barbart.shiki.ro, that's still needed. DNS linkage between the global and the environment DNS zones, that's still needed. And then we need to create AKS, public IP address, and MySQL server and database. So these are the resources we need to create in main.tf. Now, going back to locals, let's try to come up with names for each of them. So in this case, the environment is dev, so it will look like this dev underscore rg. The ACR name is no longer needed, so this became, we said, VNet name, yeah, and we can call that Shiki. The DNS name is going to be, let's do this. Yeah, so we're using the format function, and it's actually going to be like this, which means our example, it's going to be dev.barbart.shiki.arrow. Okay, this is what we want to obtain. Now we have the VNet name, we need the pip name, and I'm going to use the format function one more time, and it's going to be like this. So underscore PIP, so it's going to look like this. Dev underscore PIP is going to be the name of our public IP address that we're creating. AKS name, I think we can actually call this something similar. So, and let's do this. So dev underscore Shiki AKS, we can do that. Let's put one more underscore here. It's not gonna hurt, so it's going to look like this. And I think we have the MySQL name. And here we can use the same convention, something like this. Okay, so this will do. I think these two names have a high degree of uniqueness, and that's fine. That's exactly what we're looking for. These are specific to our subscription and resource group, so we don't care about them. That being said, we finished with locals.tf. The provider is the same, so this needs no change. And now we need to work in the main.tf. Okay, so Azure RM resource group, this is going to be the env. So I'm going to do an F on global, and I'm going to replace it with env everywhere, and that should sort all of the links. Local.rg name, location is good. That's exactly what we want. And now we need to add a VNet. Now, guys, I don't want you to think that I know all the Terraform resources by all the providers by heart. That's actually impossible for a human, I think. So instead, as usual, when I don't know something and I want to find it out, I just Google it out. So I'm trying to create Azure RM VNet. Yeah, there we go. Terraform.io. This is the official resource. Manages a virtual network, including any configured subnets. That's perfect for me. Example usage, and we have an example here. So this is exactly what I want. Okay. And let's paste it here. So Azure RM virtual network, env underscore VNet. Name is going to be local.vnet name. Location is going to be inherited from env underscore rg dot location. Resource group name is going to be this. Okay. Address space, now we can leave it as is, but I don't want a VNet that's this big. It's going to be useless for our purposes. We're just deploying a small AKS cluster. So let's just say instead of /16, we're going to use a /27. I think that's going to be more than enough. Sorry. Okay. DNS servers. Now, I don't think the DNS servers are mandatory. This is optional, so I don't need any custom DNS servers. I'm going to delete this. And then we have subnets. So yeah, I'm going to have one subnet, I think. And I'm going to call it AKS subnet. Let's make it a 28. Yeah, so we're going to give it the address space half of what the VNet has as capacity, because our AKS cluster is going to use a type of network plugin which doesn't require a lot of IP addresses in the subnet itself. Okay, so that's fine. I'm going to remove the tags because I don't care about the tags that much. And I think we're done with the VNet. Going to the DNS subdomain, yeah, Azure RM DNS Zone Environment DNS. The name will be local DNS name, that's fine. And the resource group name will be, this is good. Add DNS record, okay, this will be global to env. Okay, name element split DNS, okay. All right, so this will retrieve dev in our case, and that's exactly what we want. Zone name is going to be Azure RM DNS zone dot global dot name. Yeah. Resource group name is going to be data dot global. Okay, time to live and records. Azure RM DNS zone environment DNS name servers, and that's fine. This will create the link for us. Now going on to one resource that's a bit more complex, and that is AKS, Azure RM AKS cluster. There we go. So let's take an example here. We are going to add more features to this as we go forward with the Path to DevOps series. So this is env AKS. Name is going to be local.aks name. Location going to be the resource group's location. And then here we can copy paste this and name. DNS prefix, we can actually use the local AKS name variable again. Now, default node pool, name, default, node count 1, VM size standard. Yeah, I think this is fine because it's a dev cluster and we don't want to spend a lot of money on Azure resources. So we can leave it as is. Identity system assigned, this is also fine. There we go. And for now, I think we can just leave the resource as is and add more features to it as we need them in the future. Okay, public IP address. Let's search for Azure RM public IP. And there we go. As simple as we get. Okay, let's put it here. Local.pip name. We can copy the location and the resource group name from here. Okay, allocation method static, that's fine. And tags, I don't actually care about tags, so we can remove those. And then we have MySQL server and database. So Azure RM MySQL server. There we go. And we can just copy the resource. So name, local.mysql name, location and resource group name, we can copy them from the resource above. Admin password, now I'm just gonna leave them plain text for now, and let's say MySQL admin 01 and administrator login password, let's say Terraform pass. This should do it. SKU name, okay, we need to look into this. Yeah, so let's bring up documentation and say Azure MySQL server tier. Azure database for MySQL, okay. Compute generation, virtual cores, B Gen 2, okay. All right, so this is a Gen 5 basic 2 cores, and I try to understand. We can use the Azure calculator. to understand how much this will cost. Yeah. So basically we go here and we search for MySQL. There we go. And single server, not flexible, general purpose, Gen 2, yeah, Gen 5 2 virtual cores. So this will cost us around $127 per month. So this is quite expensive. Let's see if we can make it cheaper. There we go. Okay, so tier basic, Gen 5 1V core. It will cost $24. So let's see. Basic, there we go. So attribute basic. This is what we're looking for, and I think it's the B here, yeah. So B Gen 5, B basic, Gen 5, and virtual cores at the end. So let's switch this to 1, and this will make it cheaper. And then we have storage, memory per gig, or storage size 5 gigs to 1 terabyte. Yeah, so this is the minimum. This is 5 gigs, and it's exactly what we want, the minimum. The version is fine. Auto grow enabled. Backup retention day 7. Geo-redundant backup enabled, no. Public network access enabled, true. SSL enforcement, true. Okay, so all of this is fine. We just needed to make some small adjustments here in terms of SKU. And I think we have our infrastructure here. So now it's time to test. First things first, we need to deploy the global resources. So I'm going to change directory to global and do Terraform init, and then Terraform apply minus auto approve. And I'll see you on the other side of the tunnel when everything is deployed. A few moments later. Okay, now that the global resources are deployed, let's visually check them out. And as you can see, we have the global RG with the DNS zone and the container registry in them. Now it's time to deploy the environment resources. And for that, I need to change directory. So I'll go back one level and then into environment. Let's clear the screen, and I need to do the same. So Terraform init. And it's fine. And then let's do Terraform apply, but without the auto approve. Yeah, so we want to see what the plan is first, and then we'll decide if we approve or not. So we're going to wait for Terraform to do its magic and tell us if what we're trying to create is the actual thing it will create. Let's do this. Okay, so there are some issues here, and no worries. It's sort of live coding what we're doing, so I'll show you how to go through them, read the error messages, and fix them up. All right. So first of all, the DNS prefix must begin and end with a letter or number. Contain only letters, numbers, and hyphen. And between, okay, and got dev shikekes. Okay, so this one is most likely in the AKS. Yeah, we have here DNS prefix, and I chose a bad example here. So let's just hard code it, or not even hard code it. Let's look into locals, and we have the VNet name called Shiki, and I would like to use Shiki here. So at the same time, I want to create a new variable. I think that's the elegant way to do. So let's do AKS DNS prefix, and let's do Shiki here. Okay, so now we're going to use local.AKS DNS prefix, and this should sort out the error messages from this error message at least. Yeah. Then name did not match regex. So for Azure RM MySQL Server, okay, we need to have only dashes. Okay, so this one doesn't support underscores, and that's fine. Let's go to MySQL name, and in here let's do dash and dash, and this should sort out the error message from here. Yeah, the second error message. And then error name can only contain lowercase letters, numbers, and dashes, but can't start with okay and must. So again, Azure RM SQL Server. Okay, yeah, so these two were for the MySQL server name. And this also reminds me that in our SQL server, we are not creating a database, are we? We're just creating the server and that's it. So we kind of want to create a database. So let's search for it. Let's search for Azure RM MySQL database. There we go. Yeah, so we have the server here, and then we also need the database itself. So let's paste the code in here, and the name will be, let's say, db1. Resource group name is going to be the same one as here, so let's just copy this value. Server name is going to be this dot, let's name it env server MySQL server, like this. Okay, there we go. Char said this is fine, and collation is also fine. So now we also have a database, and I think we fixed all the issues. Let's apply one more time and see what happens now. One eternity later. Alright, and the plan is successful. As you can see, 8 to add. Everything looks fine, and let's just, yes, let's create all these resources. I'll see you on the other side, because I'm going to fast forward this. Another eternity later. Alright, we're back, and the infrastructure was successfully created, so that's great. Now let's do a simple test, you know, the DNS resolution test. So we're going to dev resource group, and we have this dev.barbart.shiki.ro DNS zone. And let's create a record inside of it. It's going to be a type A, and let's say test. And let's give it an IP address of 3.3.3.3, something random and stupid. All right, and let's now open PowerShell, zoom in, and do an ns lookup for dev.barbart.shiki.ro. Sorry, it was test.dev. And as you can see, the answer is the IP address that we set. So at least from a DNS perspective, our zones, parents and children, are interconnected and linked. We have the infrastructure up and running, and everything is created in our dev resource group. Now, there are some steps still ahead of us, and some of them are actually deploying the application to the infrastructure, also adding the cert manager and the ingress controller to the infrastructure so that we can have an actual host name which is HTTPS secure, and to serve our front end through the ingress object through the ingress controller. So there are a few more steps, but the next one is going to be a simple one, but it's annoying right now because I have to manage these folders separately. So I have to change directory first into the global folder, create, and then into the environment folder and create. And when I want to destroy, I need to start with the environment layer and destroy, and then go back to the global layer and destroy that one as well. So I'm human, maybe I'll forget. I don't want to incur costs into Azure. So I'm actually going to script this functionality in the next video. We'll create a PowerShell script or maybe a Python script, which changes directory based on applying and destroying, and runs the Terraform necessary commands so that in the end, I'll have one seamless process which creates both layers for me and destroys both layers for me in the right order. That being said, this is it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this follow along exercise of an introductory level with Terraform. As you've seen, we've used some Azure resources, but pretty basic. We didn't modify them a lot, but I promise we will do that in the future, and there's a lot of exciting stuff coming. So stay tuned to the channel and to this series, and I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day ahead. Cheers.